Mark.
You're most welcome. Good morning, David. I want to take a slightly different take on your argument that effectively Rishi Sunak is wrong. I think Rishi Sunak is right to call out extremism because there is. Clearly there has been. And, we've seen marches up and down the country
when you say that he's right to call out extremism, how consistent do you think he's been on that? I.e., why was he so slow to condemn Lee Anderson? Why has he got Suella Braverman and Liz Truss in his party saying the most extraordinary extremist things? What's going on there, do you think?
Can I respond to that? I think what I'd like to point out is the hypocrisy that is coming from what I call the liberal centre. And by the way, in that liberal centre, I incorporate Rishi Sunak's Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats, and the Labour Party, because as far as I'm concerned...
You would describe Rishi Sunak's Conservatives as liberal?
Yes. Yes, I don't believe in this division between Team Red, Team and Team Blue. As far as I'm concerned, there is a liberal establishment running this country. And at the end of the day, they do what is in their own electoral interest, which is why you've got a rampant, out-of-control culture war that we've had.
You would describe Suella Braverman? You would describe Suella Braverman, Dominic Raab, Boris Johnson, Therese Coffey, Michael Gove as a liberal establishment running this country?
Most of them, yes. Suella Braverman, I would probably say not, but certainly as far as I'm concerned, Rishi Sunak...
Nadine
David
Dorris,
Cameron,
is she part of the Liberals? Is Nadine Dorris part of the Liberals establishment?
They are part of I don't consider some Conservatives part of the Liberal establishment, but most of them
But they've been running the country for 14 years.
Again... It's they've been running the country. Labour was running Birmingham and has run it into the ground.
Hang on.
They bankrupted
Mark, I'm so sorry, but the Labour Party has not been in power since 2010.
It doesn't really matter. The Labour Party, at the end of the day, has been the official opposition, certainly since 2010.
But we're down to the least MPs we've had since 1935. You certainly can't blame us for the country.
David, I can't really have a debate with you if you won't let me make my point.
No, I'm happy for you to make your point, but I'm challenging a little because I'm not sure your point's quite right. But do continue. Continue, Mark.
At the end of the day, we're talking about the cultural norms that this country is supposed to stand for, and that is meant to be freedom. It's supposed to be a degree of tolerance. So what we've seen for the past 14 years, and it's been supported by all parties, either directly or effectively by omission of any kind of condemnation, has been cancel culture. It's been militant LGBTQ rights that have gone way beyond its remit of equality to effectively pursuing an agenda that effectively is going God knows where. And a lot of people in this country are sick and tired of it. A lot of people in this country, I think, want to return to normality where, yes, it's okay completely to be gay, to be whatever you want to be, to believe whatever religion you want to believe, but don't infringe on the rights of other people. Okay. That's really what people want. And that's the extremism that I'm talking about. I think I remember my own name, David. There's no need to say Mark repeatedly.
LGBTQ gone rampant. What do you mean by that?
So here's the thing. About 25 years ago, when gay people were genuinely discriminated against, they were denied jobs, they were effectively being physically assaulted, in some cases still are. It was disgusting and appalling, and everyone was right to condemn it and to act against it. Now what we've got is we've got a case where you've got 150 different kind of genders, and I've lost count how many now we're supposed to acknowledge that there are. And these things, I have no idea. As far as I'm concerned, there are just two. But the fact of the matter is we're having pseudoscience being put on effectively into educational establishments, claiming that there are far more than there actually are. It's completely subjective. And people are being effectively labelled as homophobes or racists or anything else if they dare to disagree.
Is that extremism, really?
Yes, it is extremism.
Okay, Mark.
It's absolutely extremism.
Okay. And is it so important that the Prime Minister should step out of number 10 and raise it to the intention that we're in a cost of living crisis, we've got a recession, our public services are in a mess? That's not a contentious point. That's a sort of statement of fact. Well, really? Is this agenda that you're pushing, is it really that important?
I think it is, and I'll tell you why that is. Look, I'm not going to disagree with you that the Conservatives have made an absolute pig's ear of everything they've been left in charge of, and I'm not a fan of them, by the way. But what I will say is that the absolute heart of a functioning society are shared values, and if we don't have shared values, then the entire country falls.
That I can agree on, Mark. That I agree with you on.
Finished.
That what are the sort of shared values? Because that I agree with. That last bit you just said. So what are the sort of shared values that we can agree on? Because in the end, what I'm interested in is how we unify the country, not how we divide it.
I completely agree. And I think the very first shared value is let's agree that we have freedom of speech, but we agree on what inciting hate actually means and what it looks like. So that's the first thing. The second thing is let's absolutely allow people not to actually state their point of view without being afraid of being cancelled either in the workplace or anywhere else, or being driven out of public life or out of the public square. Let's agree that people like the Jewish community in London, of which I'm a part, can actually go down to London without the fear of being intimidated on the streets by people, whatever their views of Israel, which have spilled over basically into anti-Israel and by extension anti-Jewish hate. I mean, there are so many examples that I could bring. And
Mark, do you accept?
We don't want to vandalise war memorials.
Mark, do you accept?
Millions of things.
Mark, do you accept that the vast majority of people who are marching, and of course you're entitled to take issue with the protests, but the vast majority are not anti-Semitic?
To be honest with you, David, I genuinely don't know, and to be able to answer that question with certainty, because from what I can see, at the end of the day, if you march shoulder to shoulder with people who support terrorists, then I've really got to question your motivations.
How then do you express your concern? What is the way in which it's legitimate then for people to question their concern about the over 30,000 folk that died, accepting that a significant proportion of them are women and children? Surely in a democracy, we have to accept that people should be entitled to express that concern.
I totally agree. And by the way, I want to make it clear, it's not that I'm suggesting for a single second that one shouldn't criticize the government of Israel. I mean, let's face it, half of Israel does the same thing anyway, and that's completely legitimate. Where I draw the line is where you get into what I call the 3D. So delegitimization of Israel, in other words, questioning its right to exist, double standards, where effectively you're holding Israel to a higher standard than anybody else, and effectively and outright anti-Semitism. And this is the problem that we've actually got in this country, where these things have effectively become blurred. Now, I'm not suggesting that for a second that Israel and it's what's happening in Gaza shouldn't be criticized or scrutinized. I think it should be. But at the end of the day, the issue that we've really got with this is that we have people who are carrying jihadist flags. They are making overtly anti-Semitic statements. And it's got to stop.
Mark,
and this is not the only issue that we have.
I totally accept that element is there, but I think we've got to be careful not to confuse the particular with the majority.